When you saw what was happening with Taimur, and I'm sure you were angry. You don't seem like someone who gets angry or shows your anger easily.
I don't think anger is the emotion here. You just again observe what's going on and you take note of it and you say, actually I don't read, I'm not on social media. But I read one post which said it would have been better if Kareena had Zika. Is that the disease that was prevalent?
That virus.
The virus, yes. It would have been better if Kareena had Zika and Taimur was never born.
When you did your famous bikini cover shoot, you were then maybe worried even about not being considered a good woman.
This was Filmfare cover. And unasked, I did this. I thought I was looking nice. I was looking great. And I mean, obviously I won't wear a bikini now. Tiger was, I had already met Tiger and Tiger was traveling. So I sent him a telegram that this is what's happened. So he wrote back saying, you must be looking very nice.
At 78, Sharmila, you have returned to acting with Gulmohar, a film that I was able to watch and I loved and thought was beautifully crafted. But I don't know how many people today know that you were only 14 when you first stepped on to the sets of a film. And you wanted to be not an actor, but a dancer. You wanted to go to Shanti Niketan. It's been quite a journey, not a dancer's journey. How tough has it been to be a female in front of the camera, a woman in cinema?
Well, you've asked so many questions at one go. Everybody says I was 14 when I started, but I count it as 13 because when the film starts, the first day of shooting,
you were 13?
I was 13, and it takes a while, and then post-production. So by the time a film is released, it's always a year later. So that is sort of recorded. But I was 13 when I faced the camera.
So even younger, and you're still in front of the camera at 78. That's extraordinary.
Mm. And I don't know how to answer your question as a woman facing the camera, because I wasn't conscious then or even now. I don't see that at all. Because, yes, we, at times, like during this COVID time, I saw all my films because I hadn't seen quite a few of my films.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that?
I remember Shashi saying that, "Kaam karna kafi nahi hai kya? I mean, dekhna bhi zaruri hai." Because we got, we did films, some for just paying the rent, or some for helping out a colleague. So there were different reasons for making a film. And when we got a good script, even then when there were no scripts except for Satyajit Ray's, we got a good narration, we would be getting so excited and money was no consideration. We were just dying to. So there were many reasons why we did the film. So there were quite a few films that when I look back on my filmography, I kind of want to apologize to the audience.
Which one?
Quite a few.
I know you came to regret the Buffon.
Yes, I did, because I don't know how I was forgiven, how I was, I think because it was black and white and because even in Gulmohar you've seen the DOP sometimes just cut your head off halfway and yet it looks nice. So maybe whatever reason I got away and it became quite a cult.
It was such an intrinsic part of being Sharmila.
Eye makeup and whether it... so I kind of... looking back, without detachment, one can see that a certain generation found liberating to look at me because I did different things. Like my hair in Waqt, when that boat song.
Yeah.
And that frilly mermaid dress that I was wearing became quite a craze. And people would go to the salon and say, well, I want my hair like that. So, and I continued to do something that was not quite the norm. And they couldn't figure me out, like I stayed alone in a hotel. I was not chaperoned. When all the women wore white and was chaperoned and sat
demurely.
Yes, they didn't smile very much also. Like my hairdresser wondered, because she was I didn't have a chaperone, but she was my minder. And she says, you don't smile like that. I said, no, but what's wrong with smiling? But you don't know him. Why are you smiling? Etc. So I was myself. I was quite, I was Jane Tagore's daughter. Everyone knew me in Kolkata. So I didn't need to be different. Much later, I understood what public image is all about and how you have to behave. But then I became a kind of social suspect because I was living alone in a hotel.
At what age?
I was 17, and my mother couldn't chaperone me because she had 2 other daughters. And I was, what I am now, I was then. But then nobody knew me. So over the years, when I look back, but we were talking about films and why I didn't. So during COVID,
you started watching your old films.
I saw all my films. And then I saw a pattern, that time in the early 60s, you didn't, like if you were a rich woman, you fell in love with a person not so rich. So you hid the fact that you were rich. So there were all these sort of rich and poor stories and the men's ego. And I go to an evening in Paris with a bow in my hair. I'm going for a bath, but I've got I've kept my hair up, but there's a red bow there and all kinds of things. And I say, but I have to find somebody, and he mustn't know that I'm rich. And looking at her, that she's not quite poor. Even in Suhana Safar, I sort of ran away. And there was a lot of stamping my foot and saying, shut up. And many shut ups in this, old films. So it still tells a story. Despite all that, if you take that away, what do you see? That there was this disparity and there was love. At the same time, one felt that I shouldn't show my riches off. So there was that kind of
middle class sort of value about wealth.
So this Hindi film, because why are they so popular? Because they have a knack of telling a story. They did it then in a different way when during, let's say, just after the independence, there was a different kind of film. And people were very euphoric. And then when the studios were making films, for instance, they made money out of mythology and devotional films, and they made such progressive films. Like we had Bharat Studios in Pune, then we had Bombay Talkies in Bombay, and then we had New Theatres in Kolkata. And they made films like Udayar Pathe and, very forward-looking, full of that new verve of independence. There was a different feel.
So I'll tell you why I asked you about being a woman in cinema. Because Gulmohar has come after, a gap of 12 years for you?
Yes.
And one of the things that you have remarked on, and many others have, is how few roles are written for women as they get older, but roles continue to be written for men. In fact, I think you said that scripts were still being made for Mr. Bachchan, which is not to take away from his talent.
If you're sort of reading a script, to a director, the director tells you that why don't you write keeping Mr. Bachchan in mind?
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen for us. Yes.
And is that something that makes you cynical?
No, it's just an observation that I see films reflect society.
Yeah.
So somewhere that male gaze or society has given power to men and morality to women. So that formula works on the screen. So you will find, although like Piku, for instance, one couldn't imagine in our time that audience will accept a woman looking after a parent.
Yeah.
It can't be done. I mean, a son can do it or somebody else, but it has to be a man. I mean, how can Deepika look after, you know? So, in any case, there were no jobs. I mean, even if women went to work in Meghe Dhaka Tara, she's working, but she's apologizing.
Correct.
And she's sacrificing for her family. And her family actually looks down on her because she's a working woman, you know?
Yeah.
And imagine that, how much worse it will be working in a film. That'll be... So I was asked to leave school because I worked in a film.
Yeah, you had to change schools.
Yes.
So tell our audience that story. So, when you decide to accept, or your family actually decides to accept sort of Opur Saad, then your school principal is very angry.
Yes, she said you'll be a very bad influence on the others. And this was when Satyajit Ray was winning awards abroad, and he was considered by all us middle class people that, we just loved his film. It was a different kind of film.
Yeah.
Despite that, she said, no, you have to choose. And then I had to make this transition from Bengali medium to English medium, but that's another story. So work was frowned upon and films were frowned upon. And women, as you know, going back again, Dada Saheb Phalke couldn't get a woman to work in a film. He had to use a man, right? So from then to now, there is a sea change, absolutely. But yet, in Dirty Picture, you find that the director loses faith after making that film, and she commits suicide. So she's a victim, right? And in Kahani, there is a need for the director to say, when Vidya Balan goes to her mentor and says that the only time I felt real, when I was expecting a baby.
Yeah.
Because that's your maternal role.
Yeah.
Right? Because she had killed a man.
That's right.
Which women don't do.
Yeah.
Right or wrong.
Yeah.
So, and then there was that scene. The film could have ended on that when the Durga is being immersed. It could have ended there. But then Amitabh's voice comes and says, well, now and then somebody comes to the earth, etc., and his lovely voice. So actually the director doesn't have faith. And he has to kind of explain to the audience that, oh, no, she's very womanly. So what is womanly? She can't do certain things because then audience won't like her. Unless she's
will not accept.
Goody. So it's our... idea of ourselves. How do we perceive ourselves? All of us want to be good women, Goodness is very much part of
our conditioning.
Because when you're born, you don't have. Then the conditioning, the social conditioning start. Like, don't talk too loudly, don't run too fast. If you're eating, your brother wants something, then give it to the brother.
Is that why when you did your famous bikini cover shoot, you were then maybe worried even about not being considered a good woman?
In Kolkata, we grew up, we were 3 sisters. And my father never said anything about wanting a son. And he said, my daughters are as good as my sons. I mean, we didn't even say it. I mean, we just felt it. And so we never really had this gender problem. And only reason why I did the bikini thing, and actually it was like a lot of people say that it was in part of Evening in Paris. There I'm not wearing a bikini, I'm wearing a swimming costume, and Nutan had done that earlier and others had done that earlier. So that was not a big thing. This was Filmfare cover. And unasked, I did this. I thought I was looking nice. I was looking great. And I mean, obviously I won't wear a bikini now. But then I had a figure. But
why not?
No, I mean, that will be...
I
don't want to make that kind of...
Yes,
of course, but I don't want to make that kind of statement. I still want to look nice at the end of the day. Only for myself, not for somebody else. But so I did that. But when I saw the reaction was, oh my God. And Shaktiji was very worried. And he called me, he said, please come and meet me. This is like, what will happen to you? And you'll be like there were this vamp and heroines. And so there was Helen had such, she wore wonderful dresses and she had all these beautiful music and songs. But we had to be very demure and, wring our hands and cry copiously and sacrifice. And Helen was having such a ball. And they were all called Lily and Susie's. And
so the vamps were having more fun and had more freedom to
act and to show the other side of...
and Shaktiji calls you and says, we must do damage control.
Damage control. So anyway, I was living alone, and Tiger was, I had already met Tiger, and Tiger was traveling. So I sent him a telegram that this is what's happened. So he wrote back saying, you must be looking very nice. So, which was a huge support. And so I kept doing things that kind of people didn't understand. I remember after...
But hang on the bikini, I think it was an earlier conversation with you where you told us that your mother-in-law was coming to meet you and the bikini posters were up in front of the house.
No. It was Evening in Paris
in Paris posters.
So they had a very peculiar poster. I think Shamiji was there holding a suitcase or something. And I was behind him, and you could only see my legs and my arms, and my torso was hidden behind him. So you couldn't really make out if I was wearing something, not wearing something. So it looked a bit
like a nude shot.
Titillating. So yes, in the middle of the night, I said my driver and the bearer, I said, well, can you just remove that? So because you come
before your mother-in-law was coming.
So you enter and then you turn right towards Carmichael Road where I lived. Yes, that happened. But not realizing that there must be other posters all over the city like that. Yeah. Yes, I quite did that. But then I saw Mausam private screening with Amma. So by that time, I think I had Amma knew me and I knew Amma. And I think had more of a sense of self that I wasn't really unsettled by these things.
You continue to be asked, and only women are asked these questions. How were you allowed to work after marriage? Firstly, I hate the framing of that question. So I'm not going to ask you that. I'm actually going to ask you whether you see yourself as a rebel.
But I have been asked,
because in
how
many
did you
ways,
allow?
And I will come to that. But was it ever an argument at home that you wanted to continue working after you got married to Tiger? And I know that he never watched your movies, though he watched his son's movies.
And watched Meena Kumari's movie. And watched Vaijayanti Mala's movie.
And how did that make you feel?
Nothing, there was I just loved working in front of the camera. Many times I thought of giving it up. And Devin Verma would say there are 3 people who are constantly wanting to leave, but they never leave. And he mentioned 2 other actors because they're not getting enough jobs. But I never left. I left Aadmi Aur Insaan of Yash Chopra, big film. I said, no, I don't think I want to work. After Kashmir Ki Kali, I saw the rushes and cried. I said, oh my God, what am I doing here? I should leave. Reena left. Reena said, Apurna Sen, she said, this is not my cup of tea. She wrote a beautiful letter to Shashi Kapoor and left. But I said, this is, after Rupur Shangshar, after all this, what am I doing? But I loved it.
Yeah.
At the beginning of Kashmir Ki Kali, and by the time I had to do the dance number at the end, I mean, I did it. I spoke Hindi, I danced, I lip-synced, which was very difficult. But coming back to your point, what you're saying that how...
I mean, was it an argument? Was it...
Every generation... No, you see, I've heard my mother. I've seen my grandmother. I lived in a joint family. My grandmother got married at the age of 6 or 7, yes. And then she came to live with her mother-in-law. And she was the only daughter, and her father was a very eminent doctor. But still, she was married at a very young age to the Tagore family. It was a good family. And she had her first baby when she was 13. She had 9 children. And when she was, when the baby wet herself, mother-in-law insisted that she keeps her hand under her so that she wakes up. She was 13. She had to change the baby, feed the baby, whatever the baby wanted, the baby had to get. So all that at the age of 13 she did. And she's actually my role model. And my mother, who wanted to do her MA in English, had to negotiate with her father. The father said, what's the point? I'll give you a sari. She said, no, I want that money to be paid towards my MA. And she lost her mother at a very young age, and she was staying with her mama. And he didn't allow her to go to a co-ed school, college. So she had to do her MA privately. Then he would switch off the light at a certain time. So she had to go outside under the street lamp and study. So, every generation's had to fight for what they want. Not they don't see it as a fight, but they go through that period and somehow they get what they want, through that struggle. So I don't observe myself that I've struggled at all, but I stuck to my gun. And I said, it really makes me happy, facing the camera. And what it does to me, because when I face the camera, I'm being somebody else. Let's say just before that, Tiger and I've had a, little problem. And when I go and work,
you leave that
I just leave that, and then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Then I come back and say, what was it? I don't even remember.
No, I understand that. But was it an argument? Was it something you had to argue and resolve?
Tiger never did that. Never did that. Left it to me. And if there was any kind of murmur, it didn't reach me. There must have been.
But the marriage and the romance itself at that time would have been considered an act of rebellion because it was interreligious.
Yes.
Did you have to face and fight a lot of opposition?
When you are young, there are a lot of people even now, when the times are not much worse than what it was in my time, are still getting married.
Yeah.
Interfaith.
Yeah.
So it's...
including Saif and Kareena.
Yes, and others.
Yeah.
Who are not so well known, who don't have this kind of cushion of, in smaller places. They are getting married because love is such an emotion, which does transcend on all these things and your personal safety. And young people are very optimistic. Thank God for them. They look forward. They have hope. They have the what it takes to push back. So they are not as negative or weighing pros and cons all the time. So they are our future, and I have a lot of faith in the young people.
How is it for you? And I'll tell you why I'm asked this. Because, last year I was interviewing Kareena. And in a completely different context, that's the time when sections of social media were being really cruel about Taimur and why he was named Taimur. And she told me that she was really scarred. She found the whole sort of that kind of negative attention on a little child to be, she used the word ghastly.
And she said, 1 day old child.
Yeah. And she said that there was even someone in the industry, she didn't name the person, who came to meet her. The child had been, just 8 hours born, 8 hours old. And that person said to her, why did you name him this? What's wrong with you? And when I think of that, and then I think of, how despite the hope, despite the optimism, the world can be a cruel place. And when you're in the public gaze, the world can be a very intrusive, invasive place.
When you say the world, we don't really
mean the world.
See the whole world, right? We see some people. And, can you really please everybody?
Of course not.
So why even try? Because if you go according to other people's
expectations or opinions,
then your own focus, your own desires get lost, and you can't really win. So you lose anyway. So why do you want to even go that way? You might as well please yourself.
But as a grandmother, when you saw what was happening with Taimur, and I'm sure you were angry. You don't seem like someone who gets angry or shows your anger easily.
I don't think anger is the emotion here. You just again observe what's going on and you take note of it and you say, actually I don't read, I'm not on social media. But I read one post which said it would have been better if Kareena had Zika. Is that the disease that was prevalent?
That virus.
The virus, yes. It would have been better if Kareena had Zika and Taimur was never born, I said, how can somebody actually think like that? How is it possible for somebody to even wish a 1-year-old or 1 day old baby so much harm? I mean, where does it come from? So I don't feel afraid myself. But I just wonder, what is this world and who are these people? Or are they just repeating what is being said? Are they real?
Are they bots? Are they real?
And what kind of repercussion it will have on their lives, Because, again, going off the point, there has been many riots in India after a certain very big occasion like that. One of my psychiatrist friend, went to that place where people were killed and there was still that line. And he saw 3 boys kind of loitering and looking at him and, whatever. So he went up to them and he said, what happened here? So they said, well, what happened here? Somebody got killed, blah, blah. So he gave them his card and said, well, if you ever need me, call me. But they were being very mocking and very derisive of the whole thing. After 3 months, he got a call and one of the boys wanted to meet him. And he came. He says, I feel every time I open the tap, the water is frozen, and I feel something is entering my skin and something is there and I'm getting rashes. Although he was quite normal. And it was all very real for him. And he was feeling, so he had come to him for advice. So when you do something terrible and your wife is washing, bloody clothes, and she becomes mute because she cannot speak for months, So the effect of all this on the family and on yourself, I don't think human beings are
meant
naturally. It's like when there's a flower or a plant, you keep it in this dark room, it'll go towards that light. Yeah. That's your natural instinct to go towards that light because it wants to live and live normally. But if you are constantly thinking of negative things and if you're full of hate and you want to harm other people, I don't think killing is easy.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is that people who carry hate, eventually it comes back to devour them.
It probably does. I don't know. I'm just saying that even in my little negative thoughts, is not good for me.
Of course, but
so I want to throw that away.
But let's go back to the time that you married Tiger.
Yeah.
Did you have to fight opposition, or was it that you both came from relatively progressive households, so it wasn't an issue?
Well, in Kolkata, when I was getting married, my parents were getting telegrams saying that bullets shall speak. And Tiger's family was also getting whatever. They were getting a little worried. And
so there were actual threats from anonymous people?
Anonymous people. So my parents organized our wedding reception at Fort William, thinking that will be the safest place. But when they realized that a lot of Bharat were coming from Pakistan, and Tiger's uncle is a general in Pakistan, so Fort William said, we can't have that. We can't have any army people here. So last minute they did something, but they managed, and nothing untoward happened. So that sort of thing was happening in the periphery. But Tiger and I wasn't bothered. We just announced to our respective parents that we want to get married. And that was that. And he carried on with his cricket. I carried on with my films. In Bombay, we didn't feel any heat whatsoever. In fact, one day I woke up and I was told that 2 guys have come to meet me. I went out. There were 2 strangers sitting there. And they said, Delhi has sent us. We are from whatever, CBI or something. And we want to, do you need protection? So we will provide you. I said, what for? I mean, I'm fine. So I didn't feel, although I was, Delhi thought.
Other people
Delhi thought that I need protection. So everybody thought that we were doing, I got a lot of other kind of advice from my friends. Somebody said, oh, he's a Nawab and, this is not going to last. And then Raj Singh ji told Tiger, but she's an actress. It is a very bad decision. So we didn't care for that either.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any doubt. We decided and we just did it. Really, there was no, maybe the times were different. I don't know. We didn't.
And one of the reasons that you have not left Delhi, though your family mostly stays in Mumbai, is because you feel, or you've said this previously, that Tiger's spirit in a sense lives on in Delhi, that he's still here. Or your life that you lived with him, or that you know or remember.
Yes, but I've lived with Tiger in Bombay also.
So why Delhi?
I mean, imagine, living in Bombay, and we kind of moved in before we got married. So that was
quite radical for your time.
And the other day, somebody just mentioned it so casually. I said, oh, well, we did that, but we wouldn't talk about it, openly. Yeah. Now they do. Sleeping in a bed without AC and without fan in October. I mean, I can't think of doing that now. So, when you're young, you're very ready
to do anything.
All right. But just remind me what you asked.
No, I was saying that, that sense of his presence, though you lost him. And I know you've spoken often about, you had imagined a life at this stage in your life. He's not there. You see your other friends who are marking their 50-year anniversaries.
So, no,
does it get lonely?
No, it never gets lonely because I still feel his presence.
Yeah.
I know if I'm wanting, like there's a question and I ask myself, I know what Tiger would have said. I know his answer exactly. There were some issues that we didn't agree at all. And some things we agreed instinctively. But just looking at him, I would know what he would say. Before I didn't have to ask the question. And the reason also is Pataudi is very close by.
Yes.
And all of us are very fond of that place. And Tiger is buried there with his mother and father. And so that's a very special space from me. And I want to be close to that. And I like my independence. I like being on my own, just pottering around, doing whatever. Because children can be also overprotective.
Yeah.
And they keep reminding you that should you be climbing those steps, or should you be doing this, or should you be doing that? But I said, well, I will know when to stop. So don't look after me too much, because that makes me feel a little
suffocated.
a little more old than I am. So
in your daughter Soha's book, she recounts how you did not want her to marry an actor. And you told her your life will be complicated if you marry an actor. You, of course, did not marry an actor. You married Tiger. But the industry is your sort of second skin. Why did you think that? And do you still think that? And if you hadn't met Tiger, would you have married an actor, you think? Or been with an actor?
You know why I say that? Because I've always been aware from the beginning that there is a whole big world outside of the film industry. And somehow the film people that I've met are constantly talking about their own films, their own music, their own box office, how many crores or lack of crores. So they're so inside themselves that they're not often aware that there is a life outside of films. And they don't have time. They're working, continuously. They're going, and it's a beautiful profession. I liked the performative bit. But this being so self-absorbed is, I find...
the narcissism or the potential narcissism
sort of not
of the
being
industry.
able to, they make good fathers, they make good mothers, all that is there. But a little bit unaware and ill-informed about what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
I'm, of course, speaking generally. There is Swara Bhaskar and Tapsi Pannu, and there are Nandita Das, and there are many others.
And you.
Who are very, very active.
You're very engaged with...
Generally speaking, the films is just a part of life, right? And you have to be engaged with your environment, with the country, with the people of that country. Otherwise, you're living in out of sync.
Yeah.
So that is that. I'm not judging it at all. I just feel that's a bit unreal for me.
Yeah.
I can't live like that.
Yeah. I was telling...
like you want somebody's drives, say, from 20 miles or 30 miles or 50 miles in a car. They don't look out of the window. They're either on the phone or they're reading a book or they're listening to music.
Yeah.
There's a living theatre out there. When I used to go and work for a Maharashtrian Marathi film with Amol Palekar called Samantar, we had to go from Kolkata to Bali, which is quite a distance.
Yeah.
And in the morning when you go, you find all these charpais. People are sleeping on the pavement. And then somebody even had a charpai with a machardani, And then there was a little area where there was a family living there. Then there was coming back, you had a bulb in the corner sort of the road, just hanging from somewhere, and people standing and playing carom. These are real images with me. And I feel absorbing all this around you enhances you as a person and your performance somewhere, because
you borrow from...
Your awareness increases, not just seeing other films.
Of
and
course,
other
you borrow
people's
from life.
performances.
You borrow from everything around you.
Things around you, how can you just put your blinkers on and not see it?
I was
telling... Again, that's not a judgment.
No, I understand. But I was telling a friend of yours at the screening of Gulmohar that I thought you were the most normal film star I knew. And she asked me to explain, what do you mean? And I said, well, exactly this, that you have a life outside of cinema and the vanity and the attention and the wealth and all of that comes with it.
I can talk to people. Like Tiger once told me, like I use the word, going there again, I get so bored, He says, but that's your problem that you're getting bored. If you talk to somebody, anybody, they'll have something to tell you. Yeah. They've lived their life.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to draw them out. And either, if nothing else, they'll give you a good recipe.
Yeah.
Or they'll tell you something, what happens, something too. And which I've tried and it has worked. And if you're interested in that, and nobody listens. Sometimes everybody's talking and nobody's listening. So if you listen to somebody, then you also learn so much more. So it has become a habit now to hear people properly, because often somebody's asking you a question. I've seen many interviews of mine and I've given completely another answer. And of course, nobody stopped me. Nobody's put me, I've digressed. But that's why hearing and
listening and paying
attention to the moment is very important, because your body, and now my children will laugh because I say this all the time, because you listen to your body, it tells you what you need to do. Then it's up to you to ignore it. It tells you you're tired. It tells you whatever.
Yeah.
And you should go out and have fun. Oh, this person is boring. You get that, And then if you marry, let's say, despite that your heart, what it's telling you, then you're marrying for lust, you're marrying for money, you're marrying for this, that, and the other. And then if something goes wrong with the marriage, then you're blaming somebody else. Often you don't realize why you've taken that decision.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a film, then you know that I've worked in this film for money. I've worked in this film to help out a friend. I worked in this film because it's a damn good script. So you know that. So then don't kid yourself is what I'm trying to say.
But let's come back in the end to Gulmohar.
Yeah.
I can't, and I don't want to give away the story because I want people to watch it. But as a matriarch of a family in Delhi, with its love and its dysfunctionality, its quarrels and its capacity to make up after those quarrels, very sort of subtle but inclusive references to sexuality, personal choice, freedom, very gentle film. Now, in real life too, you are the matriarch of this large, rambling family. And your family, perhaps more than any other family in the public gaze, reflects a kind of multicultural kaleidoscope of personalities, of faiths, of maybe even ways of thinking. How do you imbibe from your own family in real life your sense of identity? I remember in an earlier conversation you said, as a Hindu, you were somebody who liked to keep a roza during Ramzan, and you would tell your children about it. And sometimes we live with cultural sort of richness all around us. It may not translate into some sort of religious, imbibement. So I want you to talk, when I was watching Gulmohar, all I kept thinking was in so many ways, you are in your own life the matriarch of this large family. It's not obviously a replica. And then I kept thinking of how many different strands make up your family, across borders, across faiths, across cities, across generations. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what your own sense of identity is and what you would like your children, your family to imbibe from that.
Both Tiger and I really... we believe in God, but we don't believe in sort of organized religion. We never thought of ourselves as Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, or anything else. Yeah. We just felt that we have to do the right thing and the good thing, help people, etc. And there is an entity that when we are down and out and we
all talk to our version of God.
And you say, help us or whatever. Yes. So that was there. And when you said about this roza, I felt these cultural traditions has to be maintained by the female member of the family. Unfortunately or fortunately, that is so in most families. So I said, if they don't see their mother doing it, although my mother-in-law did it, but then she was getting old. So that's why. So one day I decided, and I think the whole of Delhi knew that I was going to keep my roza, because I was so nervous about this that I
would want to
talked and, and I started. And it was such a wonderful month for me, because suddenly you feel much calmer and you get more focused. And I remember the girls being very impressed, Amma's roza, keep your voice down, and then telling other people, she's roza. So there was a lot of kind of respect from the staff as well. And then in Bhopal, they start preparing for Eid. So there's gota lagana and all that. So there's such festivities. And Bhopal is different because the entire house is Roza. The entire community there is Roza. So there is a different kind of belonging there. So I see all this as a cultural thing and a cultural gain.
Yeah.
And to understand, basically. And this was just to train the girls that they have the option.
Yeah.
That, either this or that or whatever you follow. But nothing is taboo
nothing
or sacrosanct or taboo.
Yeah.
So I think they've got that. And when I went to work also, because since a woman's work is never appreciated, I would tell them that, get 10 on 10. I mean, wish me.
Yeah.
Wish me before I go to work. So then they realize that, so now it's normal. They accept that their wives will work. I mean, it's not a big
It's not a fight anymore, or even a statement.
Or that you have to stay like Saif and Kareena have decided that they're going to structure their work as such that when she's working, he's at home, and when he's working, she's at home. So that's not a contest, or my work will come before yours.
Yeah.
So I think this is by example you teach them, not.
Well, every generation fights a battle that the next generation hopefully should not have to. Before we say thank you, any regrets, any unfulfilled passions, dreams?
No, I mean, like about the hair, I've said.
We loved your hair. Don't overthink that.
Rishikesh Mukherjee came and told me that we'll give you such a beautiful backlight and you don't have to do this. And I didn't listen to Rishi. Can you imagine? I mean, I just look back and I said, what kind of a person was I? Not listening to your own director. Yeah, so no major regrets. No major regrets. I think I've done, I wanted to get married at a certain time, and I did that. I wanted to have children at a certain time. I was advised again. I gave up films like Kati Patang, Tere Mere Sapne, Khilona. They all went on to become very big hits. But I said, I want to enjoy my children. So I'm going to have a baby now, not at 30. So I think I've pretty much done what I wanted to do. So there is no regret.
I don't know how many people can say that. That's really a life well lived. But it's lovely to have you back on screen with Gulmohar. I hope many more people write scripts that are compelling for both women and men as we grow older. Any last thoughts? You were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say that Gulmohar is just not about me. It's about...
Of course. I'm just not saying more because I don't want to...
Ensemble cast, and it's a brilliant
film.
Again here, the inspiration or the support is provided by the, Simran.
Yes.
Ultimately goes to Manoj and say, what the hell are you doing?
Yes.
And just come back to your senses.
Yes.
And, holds him tight and gives him a
I'm not saying more because we can't reveal the story, but it's a fabulous ensemble.
And also, Kaveri goes to Suraj and explains that don't keep punishing yourself.
Yes.
There is another way of looking at things. So I think women have that ability to work and support a family.
The great multitaskers.
Great multitaskers.
Thank you, Sharmila. Pleasure as always.
Thank you. Thank you.